having safely landed on the surface of Demetria thanks to her mysterious sigil, issue 6 of Meridian opens with Sephie in the town of Akasia. She is being escorted around by its minister, an older than Sephie but still pretty young-looking woman. She is named Mariah, and she has long black hair and a light brown skin tone. She wears a lovely robe dress thing colored with warm reds and yellows. Sephie is dressed in new clothing as well. She has on a practical pair of purple pants, some sturdy boots, a dull red top, and a soft brown cloak. Mariah is showing Sephie around the city, and author Barbara Kessel is doing a few things while she does it. First off, she is doing exactly what she looks like, telling us about our new locale, Akasia. The city makes its money from dyeing cloth and clothing, which it then trades up to the Flying Islands. The city is dependent on those trade ships, actually. Like the Flying Islands, though, Akasia is built above the surface of Demetria, not on it. It is supported by stilts and support beams. They are above the ground, technically, but they also remain connected to it. This is also demonstrated in those previously mentioned dyes, which use the toxins that have blighted the surface as a mordant. A mordant is a substance that is used to fix dyes to a dyed surface, just in case you didn't know. I'm sure that you did know, dear listener, but I did not. On the downside, these same toxins are destroying Akasia slowly, forcing its citizenry to constantly build new portions to the city. This is actually cheaper than repairing the damaged structures, Sephie even asks. As such, they have a solid trading partnership with the loggers who live to the east. They aren't as wealthy as Catador, of course, but they do pretty okay. Akasia makes enough money that they can take in orphans from around the world, actually. Mariah does drop a few personal questions about Sephie between her tour guide explanations. How is Sephie the minister of Meridian? How did she get down to the surface? And does your uncle miss you if he's supposed to have custody of you? Sephie answers these questions with all of the tact and guile that she possesses, which is pretty much none. Sephie is the minister of Meridian because her father died. A ship from Catador brought her here, wink, and her uncle's not going to miss her. If anything, he knew that she was leaving, actually. By now, he should know that she was safe, meaning dead. It's clear with this scene that Mariah is attempting to do some information gathering, while also still appearing politely hospitable to her magical guest who fell from the sky and rejuvenated the landscape around her while doing it. Sephie does not seem to pick up on this, although her narration does make note of how bad things are going to go here. It is literally in the first panel of this particular issue, so it is no surprise to us that something dark lurks beneath the beautiful wooden surface of Akasia. I was actually really thrown by the opening of this issue when I reread it. I remember most of Akasia and what happens here, but this, time skip, and it's a very small one, but still, it really shook me. Sephie trying to play off falling from the sky like it isn't the weirdest thing that has ever happened is incredibly jarring to me. She doesn't seem fazed by it in the slightest. She's curious, she's thoughtful, she's attentive to Mariah's conversation, even if she does not pick up on the undertones of espionage. And she is suitably bad at keeping secrets, which is something that I kind of like about the character. If Sephie is going to be this innocent force for good, then she needs to be bad at deception and lying, because we've already seen that her uncle is flooping great at it. This particular scene is so layered. Author Barbara Kessel is doing a lot of world building with Akasia in a very short amount of time. This whole scene is 4 pages, but she is also demonstrating how similar Akasia and Meridian are in their cultures. They're both artisan cities, they treasure their connections to nature, they help other people. Kessel wants Sephie, and she wants us, to like Akasia, because it will make what is going to happen here all that much more tragic. We also have Sephie's half of this scene to talk about. I love her curiosity. I love that it really comes through here in this moment. When Mariah mentions that they take in orphans, Sephie has this little pang of pain as well, realizing for the first time that now that word applies to her. She might have let go of her sadness and said goodbye to her father, but it hasn't quite settled in that he's gone yet. And as I mentioned earlier, I like Sephie's lack of deception as well. My only real complaint about this scene is that Sephie feels like she is doing some work to ignore what that sigil did. It feels like she's trying to pay attention to everything around her so she can kind of ignore what happened to her. Maybe I'm just a more naturally anxious person than Sephie is, but I know that if I fell from the sky and woke up in a strange city, I would be running like hypothetical scenarios, hypothesizing, fretting over what the sigil is. How does it work? How did it save me? What Mariah must think, assuming that Sephie even knows that Mariah was the one who found her. Like, it would just be endless questions for me until I had reached a point where I felt comfortable with what few answers I would be able to discern or present to other people. Meanwhile, Sephie's just touring the city and having a lovely stroll. Must be nice. Mariah ends the scene by offering Sephie a home here for as long as she needs it. After all, it isn't often that they get a guest from Catador. Cue the sting!
That's a real nice flooping transition.
Kessel uses the mention of Catador to transport us there, where we find young Jad docking his ship. He is greeted by Avi, a woman with blonde hair, who asks for news from Meridian. Is it really that bad back home? She asks. Oh, okay. Avi is from Meridian, but works in Catador now. Got it. Jad tells her in a whisper that, yeah, the council and anyone who wants to leave have. He's here for Sephie, and then they're booking it. Before he can say where they are meeting, just in case Avi wants to join them, she shusses him. She has been considering going home when her contract was up, but don't say anything here. The walls have ears, Jad. She warns him to be careful. Avi will keep an eye on his ship and have it ready for him to leave in a hurry. Jad eagerly heads off. All he has to do is sneak onto Alon's private island. How hard could that be? That is
That's a real nice flooping transition.
Because we then move to the island. We get, quite frankly, too many panels of the Muse of Gaiatan being mysterious and musy. She says that the future will favor the red, and then she looks at Alon, whose reverie is interrupted by LaRossi, his major domo. LaRossi has a guest for the minister, and it is the same black woman that the Muse called Elon's like, but opposite. She is dressed in a beautiful purple dress, wearing several bead or pearl necklaces with 2 hoop earrings on each ear. As she enters the room, she has a quiet smile on her face. She is Risha Teramu of Arud. Even on the other side of the world, word of Elon's skill as a businessman has reached her. As the only person left with something to teach her, she has come here to learn from him. After all, she goes on, Elon has no heir. His knowledge needs to flow to future generations. And Risha is certain that she will be an ideal vessel for his philosophies regarding business. Elon seems pleased by all of this flattery. So she's just decided to adopt him as her mentor? How admirable, he says. He is clearly into her confidence and bearing. The Muse says that 2 strong winds form a storm, meaning Elon and Risha, and that the minister replaces one heir with another, even if the first one isn't gone yet. Which...
That's a real nice flooping transition.
Takes us back to Sephie. She and Mariah dodge a stampede of folks as a Selenog attacks Akasia. A Selenog is a toxin dweller, and we don't get to see the beast here, but it swims in the chemicals beneath the city. When it hears the footsteps on the wooden planks above it, it bursts up through them and then eats, whoever was walking on the planks. Mariah tries to shuffle Sephie along to an area where the wood is still good. They'll be safer there. But Sephie has spotted a little boy who's fallen behind the crowd. She chucks off her cloak, narrating that Papa sometimes called her reckless, but she could feel the power inside her as she ran to the kid. Nothing could stop her from saving him. She was more than just Sephie in that moment. She was a mythic goddess of protection. While she was filled with life and power, no other lives would be lost. And she does scoop up the boy, her sigil glowing yellow, and that same energy seems to flow from her very feet into the wooden planks. And about 10 feet behind them, a massive Selenog, which looks like a crocodile or an alligator, bursts up through the wood. Its sharp teeth close on empty air and wood, but it is closing in on its prey. For a second, Sephie thought that she was fine, that she had finally understood why she had been given this power. But then the frail planks beneath her snap. The boy goes flying away. Sephie falls through the walkway up to her armpits. She looks down, and through the splintered wood, she can see the Selenog circling her. A powerful determination fills her. No scaly-faced beast was going to eat her. She concentrates, pushing that power, that confidence out of her and into the wood. She could actually feel the fibers repairing as the energy flows through it. If the monster couldn't break through good wood, then she would create enough to save her and the child. Sephie hauls herself out of the hole, picks up the kid again, and starts running. A massive boom resonates behind her as the Selenog slams into the healthy, strong wood that she has left behind. After turning the kid over to his parents, Sephie is left physically exhausted. That feat really took it out of her, and it has also left her the center of attention. Everyone who had witnessed this miracle was just staring at her. It's the first time that anyone has seen Sephie use her powers. In the skies above, the convoy from Meridian approaches Ring City. A small ship meets them a fair distance out, and a young black woman boards John Tacardi's ship. She hooks up a guideline and brings over a crate with sails that have the symbol of Ring City on them. The city has heard all about Sephie, and Alon has warned them about helping Meridian. He's even stationed some troops to help keep the peace. But Ring City and Meridian are old friends. They can't turn them away. So, instead of harboring Meridianites, with this sail swap, they're just another contingent from Ring City finally returning home. One of the younger men on the boats protests this, but Meridian never marks their sails. It's a symbol of who they are. But Mira talks him down. Right now, yeah, they might have to hide who they are, but that doesn't mean that they're going to forget who they are. And that's what's important. Back on the ground, Mariah takes her own counsel out to the plot of land where Sephie first impacted, proving her wild claims about how she found the girl. The question now is, what do they do with her? Between this display of growth and what she did with the Selenog, it is clear that Sephie has a great power. She would make an incredible ally, and she is clearly willing to help them. But Mariah fears making an enemy of Alon. She knows that Sephie fell, and that means that Alon must think that she is dead right now. Because after all, no one survives falling from the sky. But if he found out that Sephie survived, and he learned that Akasia didn't inform him of that, his rage would be palpable. If he blockaded their city, they would all die. And that is if he is merciful to them. They have all heard the stories about how he blockaded Siegen, or that he has threatened to let Torbil fall over a bad contract. If even one spy got back a single word to him, then harboring Sephie could be the biggest mistake of their lives. So Mariah pitches a compromise plan instead. They'll accept any help that Sephie offers. They'll let her stay if she wants to stay. But they will also just quietly give Alon a little heads up. And if he wants her returned, then surely they will be rewarded for such clever thinking and loyalty. Given how important Sephie could be to him, because after all, she inherits both Meridian and Catador, then he'll probably come for her himself. The council eventually agrees to Mariah's plan. As this adventurous day comes to an end, Sephie finds herself beat but uplifted. She slept the rest of the day away after her rescue, waking up to a sunset. Her first on the surface world, actually. Quote, "On Meridian, the rim sunset is followed by a corona of last light that circles us from below." End quote. She has never seen the sunlight just stop the way it does on the surface. Seeing something so familiar be so different, she was reminded of her own situation regarding her uncle. Ilan of Catador would not destroy her island. She swears it on that last little bit of sunlight. She would repay the people of Akasia for their kindness for taking her in. Then she would go home and start a war. My name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown, episode 32.6 of Meridian. Good business. The Selenog attacks scene is pretty good. It's a realistic threat, different enough from what we know on Earth to be fantasy-esque. It looks like it could live on an alien planet, but it is not so different from what we know that it feels unreal. Despite Demetria having floating islands and, someone going around just like slapping sigils on folks, this world is pretty normal for the most part. No one else has magic or superpowers or like advanced technology. There's no dragons or demons or anything like that. This also helps Sephie and Ilan feel that much more amazing in comparison to everything going on around them. I am a little unconvinced that Sephie would have fallen through the wood, but not fallen all the way through. If the wood is that rotted, then I would think it would be pretty soft overall. The wood that she was putting her weight on should have broken too. Like when she catches herself on the surface, she's holding her body weight on the now shattered wood. Why doesn't that just crack and crumble and fall into the toxins as well? I think that's what would have happened. Obviously, not all of the wood is rotted, so some of it would have to be structurally sound. It's just a little bit uneven of a threat. I do like Sephie using her power to heal the wood, thus reinforcing its structure and allowing her to pull herself out. I do think that is clever, I think it's smart, and I think it works well. I also appreciate that the first public use of power for Sephie is saving a child's life, while Ilan uses his power to punish Captain Patkian. I'm going to say it again, that's just some solid contrast in my opinion. The final scene that we get with Mariah is a bit of a mixed bag for me. On the one hand, I really hate that Mariah brings her council out there to discuss their options, but then she essentially browbeats them into her plan to begin with. She doesn't listen to any suggestions here, she just shuts each of them down. This could be, from a writing perspective, a way for author Kessel to show us how Mariah runs Akasia, that she puts on a democratic, kind show, that she cares about what her counselors think, but she doesn't actually care what anyone else thinks. This two-faced style of leadership feels right for Mariah, given her information-gathering tour at the start of the issue, but we have just met her. I think that this discussion is mostly a tool for Kessel to give us insight into Mariah's plans moving forward, more than it is a commentary on who she is as a person. Artistically, I do think there's an incredibly nice touch here. There has been a bird in pretty much all of Sephie's scenes in the comic since Meridian started. I do not think that it is the creator still in bird form like we saw back in issue 1. I think that it's more a symbol of how Sephie fits in with nature, how she's comfortable in the skies, and how she respects the natural world. And during this particular scene with Mariah, she coaxes the particular bird that we've been seeing a lot of. She coaxes it in, she lashes it around 1 foot, and at the end of this scene, she has it resting comfortably on one arm. This display feels like Mariah is putting on a kind show. She is winning the bird's trust and then trapping that bird for her benefit. The bird is a metaphor for Sephie and Mariah's plans for her. Whether this scene is specifically about Mariah's two-facedness or not, I think you can leave up to interpretation, but for me, that's what this scene's about. This issue does feature a major artistic change as well, as original artist Joshua Middleton was fired from CrossGen during its production. There's going to be a bonus episode after this one where I go into the whole story, including who Middleton's replacement was supposed to be, who it ended up being, and how their artistic styles compare. So I'm not going to go into that detail here, it's just going to take too long. Artist Steve McNiven, who had a pinup published a few issues ago, steps in to fill the gap for the next few issues, though, just in case you were wondering. Issue 7 of Meridian opens in Akasia still at one of the carpenter's businesses. We find a man carving an image into a doorway, and then a golden glow flows over the wood. The carving is erased as the wood regrows back to normal, and this guy freaks out. He cries out as the energy moves up onto him, "Aah!" But then it repairs his apron, hammer, and chisel. He sighs in relief and the sudden realization that whatever this thing is, it's benign, it's helpful. You and I know what it is, because it's Sephie. In order to repay Akasia for taking her in, feeding her, and clothing her, Sephie is using her sigil to heal the toxin-damaged wood. She recaps Akasia's situation, but this time we get a little revealing bit of information. Sephie says that Akasia is poor, a concept that she is kind of unfamiliar with. She grew up quite comfortably on Meridian. Poor was a disease that the surface dwellers had, and out of fear of catching it, Sephie never visited the surface with her father. But now she is the cure, and her father always taught her to share. Although he would also wink and say that creating goodwill is good business. Sephie moves on, chatting with Mariah as they go. The minister is surprised by this act of generosity, but Sephie is just happy to do what she can. At one point, Mariah stops walking, amazed when Sephie hangs in the air when another area of wood crumbles beneath her. Sephie didn't even notice that the wood had fallen away. She's just floating there. Sephie looks down, surprised as well, and then gravity suddenly kicks back in like a Looney Tunes cartoon. She drops into the bubbling, toxic liquids. The crowd that had been watching this charges in to save her. Normally, a plunge like this is fatal, but they're all right here. They've got plenty of time. They can still save her. They try to pull Sephie out, but the acidic toxins burn their hands. Sephie does end up getting pulled out and climbing out herself, and everyone is amazed by this latest miracle, because she is fine. There are no scars, there are no burns, nothing is wrong with Sephie. Suffused with yellow energy from her sigil, even Sephie's clothing is repaired. And this bothers her. This is finally too weird, too much, too quickly. She can fix things, she can fall from the sky, maybe she can float and heal? Quote, what was I turning into? Was I really Sephie anymore? End quote. We then bounce to Ring City, where the Meridianites are having a little bit of trouble fitting in. The minister, a man named Odwin, pulls John Tacardi aside and talks to him about Meridian's plans. Do the Meridianites plan to stay in Ring City? Are they going to assimilate? Or are they going to leave after a while? Ring City will house them as long as they have to, don't worry about that, but they need a plan. Because eventually, someone somewhere is going to slip that they're here. And with Catadorian troops on the island, it's only a matter of time until they're caught.
That's a real nice flooping transition.
Over to Catador. we find Jad saving a young man named Derek from local soldiers. Jad plays it all pretty cool, having escaped from Catadorian soldiers before. It's no biggie, they're kind of stupid. But if you could point me in the direction of Alon's estate, that would be great, my dude. I am here for Sephie. Derek blanches at this news. You mean, like the minister's niece, Sephie? Were you close? Jad holds up a hand and crosses his fingers. Me and Sephie, we're like this, bro. Oh, I hate to be the one to tell you this, Derek starts, but Sephie left. She was running away and the minister sent soldiers after her. When they tried to stop her, well, she dropped. She's dead, Jad. Jad is so distraught by this news that his entire body goes slack. He had been leaning on an unused smokestack, and his body just goes limp. He slides off and over the side of the rooftop. Derek dives at him, managing to catch him just in time, pleading with him to come to his senses, pleading with him to help. He is too heavy for him to pull up. Please, Jad, it doesn't mean that you have to die too. From talk of death to talk of the beginning, we now visit Elon and Risha. The pair sit before a large fireplace, having spent the day chatting. Elon recounts his rise to power. And thinking about it, this is our first bit of backstory regarding him. Elon married the daughter of Catador's last minister. She was a frail woman, his wife. Their marriage was a brokered thing, and she died before they were able to have children. Elon had hoped that Sephie would be his heir, but with her dead, he'll need a new one. However, that role is not something that will be given freely. If Risha wants to be his heir, then she will have to earn it. There are many ways to do business, he says. And many roads to power, Risha replies. Elon then demonstrates the power of his sigil to her. He grabs a log from the fireplace, one that was still burning, and he comments that he feels the pain of touching it. But he transcends that pain and destroys the log, thus destroying the pain. Risha smiles pleasantly at him, like this isn't the most crazy thing she's ever seen. But not all feeling, she asks. Risha reaches out for his hand, and he firmly says no. Before anything more can happen between them, they are interrupted by a knock. LaRossi has news. Elon dismisses Risha and is told about Sephie's survival. He is amazed. She fell from the sky and she lived? The power that would take. As he absorbs this information, we see the glowing orange eyes of the Muse in the darkness. She whispers a single word. Go. And we see that word laced with orange energy. Elon orders a ship and crew prepared for him. He's going to go get her. LaRossi is a bit perplexed by this adventurous side. The messenger from Akasia is still here, sir, and why trouble yourself? The Muse pushes again. Go. Elon smiles. He wants to make sure that she is successfully returned to his care without any further incident this time. In Akasia, we find Sephie doing what she has been doing this entire time, walking and talking with Mariah. Mariah finally works up the courage to ask Sephie if she is willing to stay here. The work that she has done is amazing, but it is quickly undone by the toxins, and the people would love her, of course. Sephie says that she appreciates the offer. She would love to stay, and she understands how useful her gift would be. But she is the minister of Meridian, and that's where her responsibilities lie first. You'll understand, she says. Mariah nods. She does understand. You have to do what is best for Meridian, and I have to do what is best for Akasia. Hey, how about we take a tour of our industry, she asks. We've shown you our craftsmen, but not our industry. And Sephie says that she would love to. She loves seeing how other cities work. They head to a warehouse district area, where Akasia's dyes are processed. On the way into the walled-off area, Mariah hangs back and has the guard pass on a message. She then leads Sephie to one of the warehouses. They've actually come up with quite the ingenious way to keep their operation cost-effective, she says. The doors to the warehouse swing open, and inside, of course, is a massive warehouse filled with bubbling, stinking, steaming vats of dyes. Seasoned, older-looking men stand watch, a ring of keys on all of their belts along with a wooden baton. Working the vats with long, hooked poles are children. Sephie is immediately horrified. As she is stunned, one of the men puts a hand on her shoulder. "They're earning their right to be citizens," he says. A second guard slips up next to Sephie.
"Yeah, the same way most of us did."
He then ducks down and latches a prison manacle around Sephie's ankle. She cries out and drops down, attempting to use her sigil to destroy it, like she's seen her uncle do before, and her sigil does glow an angry red. But nothing happens. Mariah kneels down to comfort her somewhat. "You are a resource that we need," she says. "Your gift will help Akasia. As a fellow minister, I know you'll understand." So I blew through the retelling of this issue, but holy golly good molly, a lot of stuff happened in this issue. I'm trying to cover 2 issues per episode, and you want to cram this much stuff, Barbara Kessel? I mean, I appreciate this much bang for $3, I guess, but jeez, I feel like I'm leaving so much stuff out. This issue has a couple displays of power from pretty much all of the parties involved in our story. The most obvious, of course, is Sephie and Alon. Sephie showing the good that she can do in the world, and Alon demonstrating his might, which, big surprise there. I would argue that both of them accomplish the same thing, though, even if their motives come from different places. They impress the party that sees their act. But they are done from completely different places emotionally, right? Sephie's display, of course, is selfless. She isn't doing this to get something from Akasia. She never asks or demands for anything in return for these services. In her mind, Sephie is settling the debt that she owes for helping her recover, for her food and shelter, for the clothes that she is wearing. And while it is all impressive, I do like that this finally is the thing that pushes Sephie to question what all of this means for her. Previous displays of her sigil have all been these little private one-off events, small self-contained things. But now, having survived the fall and then a dip in acid, walking on air, and healing portions of a city, Sephie is finally beginning to understand that she has been drastically changed by the sigil. Alon, on the other hand, doesn't really feel chained at all. I suppose that he does feel emboldened by this point. He knows his power, he knows what he can do with it, and he knows how to manipulate it for his benefit. Showing Risha what his power can do tells her that he is literally on a whole different level from her. He isn't just Alon, a successful businessman and a minister. He isn't just a great candidate for her as a teacher. He is something else entirely. Able to handle pain that most people would shy away from. And I would argue that, given the type of decisions that we have seen Alon make up to this point, we know that Alon can handle emotional pain easily. I don't even know if he feels emotional pain. He feels little to no guilt. He feels little to no compassion for other people. He rises above such base concerns from his perspective, just like he rises above the pain of holding this burning log in his hand. I don't want to spoil what happens between Risha and Alon, but this scene in particular always read as incredibly flirty to me. There are these quick, stolen touches between the two throughout it. Risha feels like she's making bedroom eyes the entire time. It's hard to tell if she's trying to be charming or if she's trying to be seductive. She makes sure to ask if all sensations are cut off for Alon, and then he says no, and she's brushing against his hand, and it just feels really suggestive to me. I don't honestly remember if these two are ever physically intimate, but it sure does feel like sex is how Risha had planned to manipulate Alon from the beginning of their relationship, and Alon seems pretty cool with it. Elon's openness with Risha is also pretty telling in regards to how charming she must be. Up to this point, Elon has been hiding his sigil. Even when he punished Captain Patkian, Elon did not show it off. He still had his collar buttoned up. But here, with this woman, he's already got his collar undone. He's showing off. I believe that this shows us how hungry Elon is to connect with someone at this point. His brother is dead, he thinks his niece is dead, and he has a power that no one on the planet can match. He is untouchable as far as he's concerned. So why not get a little cocky? We also have Mariah demonstrating her own skills as a minister, although they are far more subtle than the displays of power that we see from Elon and Sephie. Using Sephie's trust and good nature to lure her to the dye warehouses after verifying that Sephie had planned to leave was incredibly smart. Mariah did exactly what she set out to do last issue. She let Sephie do whatever good she was going to do for Akasia, and once she decided to go, she stopped her. She's going to let Elon know and then collect the rewards and bask in having a nicely recovered city. Everything's coming up, Mariah. Nothing could possibly go wrong with that, right? Oh, and a small little thing that I love is Sephie trying to destroy the chain that is fitted onto her at the end of the comic. She knows that the sigil can destroy, right? She has seen her uncle do it. But for Sephie, that seems to be impossible. Elon kept asking the Muse if the powers from the sigil were a function of his nature or a function of the sigil's nature. And here we finally have a little bit of an answer. Sephie doesn't think of herself as someone who destroys things. She is not a destroyer. So her sigil can't destroy things. Maybe that's something that she could learn her way around eventually given time and practice, but certainly not yet while this is all new to her. I do like her having the idea, though. It shows that Sephie is quick thinking and resourceful, something that we've seen in the character before, but it's nice to have it reinforced, and I like that bit of storytelling. The Muse of Gaiatan also gets a moment to do her first real display of a superpower when she influences Elon to go get Sephie himself. And out of all the mentor characters, at this point in CrossGen's history, the Muse easily feels like the most obviously superpowered to me. Like, she literally just shows up and starts talking about things that no one should know, and she predicts the future and
No swearing.
You compare that to someone like Skink over in Scion, who is honestly supportive of Ethan, and it's like a completely different ballgame. Skink does not use a whole lot of powers in the first 6 issues of Scion at all. Which, again, is part of the point of what CrossGen was doing. Each book should stand alone, yet each book needs to complement one another. Each mentor needs to be different, yet fit the framework that they all exist in. This ability to command is one that we saw over in Scion, actually, at the end of issue 2, when Skink told Ethan to sleep, and the kid immediately went to sleep. If you were reading multiple books, you would know that this is something that the mentors could do. They could compel people to do things. But if you were just reading Meridian, then the Muse just busted out their first mysterious new superpower. And again, it might be a shocking moment, but if you read everything, this is just another thing that the Muses can do. Depending on what book you're reading, it might seem more surprising that this is the first thing that the Muse does. We also touch base with Jad when he learns that Sephie is dead. This is easily the most over-the-top bit of drama that I honestly think Kessel has given us so far, and Jad's kind of had all the drama for the most part. Hello, Ko. Jad literally just lets himself slide off the roof in disappointment and loss. It's just so overwhelming and over the top for him. But, I also get it. This is young love. Jad probably thinks that he is the hero of this story, going to the island of the enemy to save the princess. Turns out it's too late. And after confidently being like, Sephie and me are like this, bro, and crossing his fingers too, like, it just goes to show you how much Jad is a part of Sephie's story, and the story of Meridian is Sephie's story, but Sephie's story is not Jad's story. There's also the quick visit to Ring City with the Meridianites, which basically does two things for us from a story perspective. First, we have the fastidious nature of the Meridians brought up again. When we see them inside one of the city's printers, one of the Meridianites chastises the natives for not taking care of their machines well enough, bro. We saw John and Stu do this back in issue 1 when the Catadorian ships arrived and they were like, somebody's altered those float patterns. Sloppy work. You wouldn't see us do that here. And we saw two burly muscular men do that in caves, critiquing Catador's blockade of Meridian, going again, we'd have done a better job if we were doing this. You know, the people of Meridian take care of everything to the best of their ability. And not only does this make their machines run better or longer, but it is clearly a point of pride. It is beyond a point of pride, actually, because we see them walk into other people's businesses and tell them, you're not doing a very good job here, you could be doing this better. That's just part of what it means to be from Meridian. They expect people to be doing things as best they can because that's how you're supposed to do things. It's not a condemnation of how the people of Ring City do their work, but they are saying, look, you could be doing a better job and your books would be better. Just saying, man. But this scene also heralds another move for them. John and the people of Meridian won't be able to justify staying in Ring City if it puts the natives in danger. No way would they be okay with that. Either they will move on or they're going to get caught. It's just a matter of what happens first. And while I don't want to spend a lot of time discussing McNiven's artwork, I do have to say that it looks amazing. The characters are drawn with a much more confident, much more solid line, which could be due to inker Jordi Ensign. But Middleton's line work was all pretty thin and empty looking, where McNiven's is just filled in like completely, and it's gorgeous. It's detailed. We get a lot of big panels and splash pages. We get some really inventive camera angles. We get some gorgeous coloring by colorist Morry Hollowell as well. Like when Sephie comes out of her acid bath and the parts of her are burning or worn down while others are healing back to perfection, they're colored differently. They look different. It looks like Sephie was burned and she is recovering from it. It's easily one of my favorite moments in the comic up to this point. Artistically, I just think that everything comes together in a way in this scene that we haven't seen before. Middleton's artwork does have a more ephemeral fairy tale quality to it, where everything here feels much more grounded, a lot more realistic, but I gotta say that it works for me. The weakest moment is easily the scene with Jad and Derek, and that's just because both of the young men pretty much look the same. They both have that like indistinct young man's face. They are both dark-haired with like dark brown or black hair, and if Jad wasn't wearing his goggles, I would honestly have trouble telling them apart in close-ups. But that is the biggest complaint that I have about this issue. The rest of it is all gold from a visual perspective. Next week, well, actually, in a few days, I haven't exactly figured out the timing on when I'm going to schedule this, but we will have a bonus episode next week detailing the sudden artistic change that Meridian underwent this issue from Middleton to McNiven. I've actually been trying to do more bonus episodes of the show over on the YouTube page, stuff that is more related to like immediate ongoing comic book stuff, as opposed to the main series that I'm breaking down. I recently did an episode where I talked about Skybound's Energon universe, the new line of Transformers and G.I. Joe comics, and I've got plans for a handful more episodes that I want to do in the near future. It's just a timing thing. That particular episode dropped on a Monday, which I think is kind of what I want to be bonus day, because it gives you a couple days between that episode and then the regular weekly episode. But it just depends on production speed, of course. Our last episode came out a week late. It happens, and it just happened because of life stuff, as opposed to me being like bogged down by too many projects. Sometimes I just don't get a good chance to record, and I'm sorry for it. But we're getting back on track. So first, we're going to have like a art controversy recap episode in 32.7, which is going to be our bonus episode, and then the actual next story episode. Guest artist Mike Ringo steps in, an industry legend, easily one of my favorite artists of all times, as Sephie struggles to escape from her new chains before her uncle can arrive in Akasia and claim her. And when he does, Minister Mariah learns that dealing with Catador is always a dangerous business, and Alon has become an even more dangerous man. Join me in a week for episode 32.8 of Meridian, Bad Business. If you enjoyed this episode of Breakdown, please make sure to hit that like button, and if you are not subscribed to the show, then click on that as well. I love getting feedback, and I would really appreciate it if you did so. If you have any questions, concerns, or would like to suggest a comic or a series to me, Breakdown can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and on a variety of podcast platforms, with links in the description for this episode below, as well as the email cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Thank you for your time and attention.